So welcome everybody. Since we're a smaller group today, we do want this to just be kind of a discussion and a chance to talk about B Corp. We're going to go through some intros, we'll do an overview, and then we'll have time for questions and discussions at the end. But if you have questions as we go along, please put them in the chat, and we can talk about it as we're going through. So just a couple of things to note. We are recording this session, so if you don't want to be on video, here's your chance. And the other thing we have to say is we are not affiliated with B Corp or B Lab. We just work with them and give consulting advice to them. So without further ado, next slide. Naman, if you want to go first.
Hey, yep, sure. Hey everyone, my name is Naman. I am in Toronto, Canada, right now in India, but based out of Toronto, Canada. And I run a video podcast called Epic, where we cover startups and small businesses that are doing something for the people and the planet. Do check it out on LinkedIn and Twitter. And I help Eliza with making or helping smaller companies become more sustainable.
Awesome. And I am Eliza Erskine. I'm the founder of Green Buoy Consulting. I'm based in Manhattan. And Green Buoy provides sustainability consulting, advisory, reporting, and B Corp certification services to small and medium-sized businesses. So we've been hosting these webinars once a month just to bring people together to talk about the benefits of B Corp, questions about it, the assessment, and just provide an open forum for people that want to learn more about it and share their experiences. So let's get started. So B Corp certification is given through a group called B Lab. They're the nonprofit. B Corp certification means you have passed B Lab's criteria and are approved as a company that incorporates people, planet, and profit into your business structure. So B Corp companies have to fill out an online assessment. They change their legal standing to a benefit corporation, and then you pay a fee to B Lab and you become certified. So I think a good way to help explain certification is to look at companies that have the certification. So on here, we see Patagonia, Eileen Fisher, Clean Canteen. These are types of companies I think when we all look at, we say, oh yes, that is a company that is dedicated to the environment. They're thinking about employees, and they have taken that a step further in getting certified. So certification is open to any type of for-profit business. You can be a product-based business or service-based business to be certified. And certification looks at the strength of your business in 5 main areas: workers, governance, community, environment, and customers. Yeah, those 5. So it's a holistic look at your business, focusing on these 5 areas, and the assessment that you fill out takes you through those 5 areas. So next slide, please. Okay, why get certified? So companies look to B Corp certification as kind of an assessment of their values and proof of actions they're taking to support the planet, and being able to share that with different stakeholders. So especially for companies that might be on the smaller side, are growing, they don't have a sustainability team or kind of a robust reporting structure, but they're taking action on sustainability, the certification process is a great way to both cement those practices and prove that you're taking action. So the other benefit is that it is beneficial to your business in a lot of ways. So there are a ton of statistics about B Corps, how they grow faster, they have better customer retention, they performed better during the pandemic. These are some quotes from B Corp companies that speak to other benefits. So I think the one from Tiffany at TMI Consulting talking about how B Corp has made her recruitment efforts a lot better. You know, she doesn't have to search for staff, they come to her. I've seen people from Patagonia talking about this, how they now have their pick of employees based purely on their B Corp status. And then the other quote is from Tom at Assurity Life Insurance, talking about, people want to do business with organizations that they trust. If you're looking for a new supplier or looking for partners, having B Corp proves that you have certain values, and that can help attract other people with like-minded values. So B Corps, they've talked about employee engagement, hiring and showing the B Corp certification to connect with customers and suppliers. So companies that have made these explicit environmental commitments often want to do business with others that have made those. So if anyone wants to share their motivations or what they've seen, if you're a company that's interested in becoming certified, why you're interested in it. If you want to share in the chat or unmute yourself. Okay, then we will go through the certification process. So again, if you have questions during this, type them in the chat and we'll answer them as we go through. So the certification process for B Corp, to get certified, you have to complete the B Corp impact assessment. Depending on your industry, it's about 100 questions in those 5 areas that I talked about earlier: workers, environment, governance, community, and customers. And you have to have a score of 80 or higher in order to get certified. Each of those questions is weighted and scored. And the other part of the assessment is that the assessment will ask for proof or documentation of each answer. So if you're talking about diverse ownership and leadership, you have to show proof of that. Supplier diversity policies, you have to show proof of those different things as well. So as you go through the assessment is free to do. Once you have enough points, you apply, B-Lab reviews it, they verify everything, you have a meeting with them, and if you maintain that above 80 at the end of the review and you're approved, then you have to do the legal requirement. That varies by state and by country, and then you pay your fee and you're approved. So that's sort of an overview of the process and how it works. So next slide, please. Completing the assessment. Okay, so this is really kind of the meat and potatoes of what we're going to be talking about today. This is, I think, where a lot of companies get tripped up or have questions. So the assessment is really the biggest part of getting certified. It takes the most time. So the assessment is 100 questions. It is based on your business type and industry. So each, you have to fill out some sort of introductory questions, and then B Corp gives you more questions based on your answers. So if you are a service type business, those questions will be different than if you're a product-based business. So it's an online platform, and you can go through each question and then provide data. The questions are they're straightforward, and there's also sort of FAQs within the assessment. It's pretty robust. They have definitions for each thing. If you're looking at something and you say, I don't know what this means, there's guidance on the side to help you go through. So the points are also weighted differently. So again, if you're a product-based company, your environmental practices, your supplier practices are going to be weighted differently than a service-based company. So that's just something else to keep in mind. You do need a minimum of 80 points to be certified. However, B Corp recommends that companies apply at a higher point value than 80, because going through with B Corp, they're checking, they're making sure you have documentation. The average that companies drop is between 5 and 10 points. So going in with, an 87, a 90 gives you a little bit of buffer with B Corp when you're reviewing your assessment and going through. So as you're going through and adding documentation and doing different questions, there might be some things where you say, oh, we do a little bit of that, but I'm not sure. Making sure that you don't have enough of those questions that you could drop in a lot of points. So next slide, please. Okay, so these are some common questions that companies have when taking the assessment. The first is, how long will it take? This is far and away the most common question. And unfortunately, the answer is it really depends on your business. There's no sort of, each company, it takes 3 months. It depends on two things. So when you're trying to consider how long it will take your business, the two main factors to consider are how much do you have documented, and what resources do you have to allocate to this. So there is no average because it depends on the company, but this is not something that will take you a single afternoon. The certification process is made to be robust. So it definitely takes some time, both to complete the assessment and then to gather data to back up your answers. And a lot of companies start the assessment and will either do a couple of sections at a time, and then we'll take a break, or we'll go through the assessment and we'll only be at, say, 70 points. And then we'll have to make some changes and review some things to get to that 80 mark. So with time to do the assessment, the good part is that the assessment is free. So you can start, any company can start it. And you can, what I think is helpful is that you can see every question that they're asking. So if you just want to focus on environment, you can do that. And then kind of jump around. And you can also check points based on each question. The assessment, it shows you, based on your answer, the related point value. So you can see, oh, if we had this policy, or if we added this, how many points would that add, and those types of things. The other time related question is to be start to finish fully certified. So B Corp right now is working with about a 5 to 8 week queue of applicants. So even if you do finish the assessment, say you get to 85 points, you submit it, there's still going to be a time lag on B Corp's end to review and go back and forth. So if you are trying to set a goal around getting certified, or want to start allocating time to it, those are some things just to kind of keep in mind. That being said, once you do send it into B Corp, they are eager to work with companies that are eager to work with them. So if you're answering quickly and you show that you're engaged in the process, they're going to give you their time back with that. And they are good about saying, we'll get this by the end of next week, or let's schedule this, and here's kind of the next step. There's a lot of information that they share that's helpful. So the second most common question is, I don't do XYZ, is that okay? So usually that's, I don't have a lot of environmental activities, or I don't have a lot to show in one area. That's fine. I mean, I don't think that should stop you from doing the assessment and trying to get certified. I recommend that companies lean into the areas that you do have. So you will need to show proof of things. And again, focus areas depend a lot on your industry and documentation. But there's no requirement for each points for each area. It's 80 points for the whole thing. So if you have strong employee engagement practices, lean into that and try and make those more robust if you need to get more points, and look at different areas that are either material to your business and kind of try and beef that up, but don't lean into areas just to get more points if it's not going to bring your business a lot of value. There's enough of what you are doing and what you can do that will get you to that 80, and that will ultimately benefit your business in the long run if you're really doubling down on items and areas that are material to your business. So the last common question is, how much does it cost? So B-Lab is transparent about pricing, which is great. They have a list of pricing on their website, and the price, your fee to get certified, is based on your revenue. So I think it's about $1,000 annually if your revenue is under 150,000, and it goes up from there. Again, but if you look on the website and on B-Lab's website, it will give you the range of revenue and then what the fee that corresponds with that. So does anybody want to talk about their experience completing the assessment? Does anybody have questions specifically about either of these questions, or anything you'd like to go into more detail about?
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, please.
Is the process the same for US and Canada?
The process meaning like the certification process? Yes. Yeah, it's the, you still will have like your meeting with B-Lab, and we'll go through that. The legal requirements are different, obviously, but B Corp has the specific like Canadian legal requirements on their site. Any other questions? Okay, let's go to the next. Okay, now we're into tips and tricks. So the first thing to keep in mind is that B Corp is very transparent, but they're also private. So by that, I mean, once you have started the assessment, no one knows. Until you're a certified B Corp, you're not listed on their website. So you can start the assessment and no one knows. In that way, it's private, but it's transparent in that you can see the entire assessment. You can play around answering questions in different ways, seeing how the numbers change and how points change. And again, behind the scenes in the assessment, there are different questions and resources for you to help as you go through the assessment, which brings me to the next thing, which is B-Lab really wants to help. They want people to get certified, and they want to be of service. This year, 2020, they've seen like a 30% increase in the number of companies that want to become B Corps. So when you sign up for the assessment, you will get an email from B-Lab. They offer office hours and email support and different FAQs. You can schedule time with people at B-Lab to get more questions answered. They're very invested in helping you and being transparent about why they're asking what they're asking, and talking about how they see those 5 areas benefiting your business. And they're also interested in your feedback. So I think in that way, they're very helpful in going through the process with you. So the other tip, I said this in the previous slide, but it really benefits you to lean into your company structure and your company culture and type. So if your employee benefits are awesome, lean into that and try and build on those things that have in place. Use your team as an assessment tool, depending on how many team members you have and how your team is set up, and the kind of culture of engagement around talking about sustainability. You can add people to the assessment, and you can get input in different people. And I've seen companies that will designate sections for different teams. So in that way, it's also available if you want to add more people to it and kind of bring other team members in. So time is on your side. Again, there's no time requirement. Once you start the assessment, you can take as long as you want. Obviously, this is good and bad because you're sort of forced to be your own master if you want to push it at a goal. But anybody can start the assessment and anybody can see where their company's at. So the one thing to keep in mind with time is that B-Lab does update the assessment and the questions about every, I'd say 18 months on average. So I've talked to clients before that started it like 5 years ago, and then now we're going back and starting to look at it and it's completely different. So if you do start, it helps to keep it within the year. But I don't see a downside to starting it, even if you don't get certified. It's still such a great free tool if you're in a place of we want to be considering our business in the environment and workers. Even questions that they're asking, if you can ask those questions into your business and bring that into your thought process, that is going to be a big help. Okay, question. How big does the company need to be? Sole owner is allowed. You can be a solo. That's fine, as long as it's one person. I'm in the process of getting B Corp certified for Green Buoy, and it's just me. So the downside of that is that it's only me to do the assessment. I can't pass it off to someone else on my team, but you can be a sole owner and do it. The fees are just based on revenue. So, okay, next slide, please. Resources. Okay, so let me put these in the chat. These are some resources that I have found helpful. Oh, it won't let me. It doesn't add them as a link. Naman, if I send them to you, can you put it in as a link? I'll email
I can try that. Yeah.
Okay. Oh no. So on B Corp's website, they have legal requirements and they go through the certification process. Let me see if this worked. Nope. Now I'm going to send it to you and see if, no, it doesn't work. Okay, well, I will email these so that everybody has them. But it's the difference between B Corp and Benefit Corporation, talking about how purpose-driven businesses grow 28 times faster than the national average, and companies that talk about the benefits of becoming a B Corp. So, next slide. Okay, questions and discussions. So, if anybody has questions or something you'd like to share or talk about, you can unmute yourself and put it in the chat. And we'll be online for the next half hour if anybody has questions, and we can talk about more specific B Corp stuff.
Thank you. I'm just starting, okay, and okay. I see this like this is an asset, definitely, to have B Corp. But I saw one question in the chat, somebody asking for an individual company, like a sole owner, and I'm not sure if there is a pre-stage to the B Corporation, because I think I read about it, like you can be. Because right now, for me, it's not good to be a big corporation because I don't have the corporation, I don't have the company fully implemented. So I don't know how many people I'm going to have, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
But there is, I remember that I read about like a first step, like a pre-approve or something like that. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, I think probably what you saw is pending B Corp.
There you go. I think that was it.
So a pending B Corp is a designation for companies that are under a year old. So you still have to go through the whole thing and get certified. And then because it's under a year old, they just list you as pending. And then as soon as you're over a year, it switches to that. So that, I think they just do that because newer companies, I'm not really sure what the rationale behind it is, but that is the pending. I think, I mean, if you're newer in business and you're sort of not sure how many employees you're going to have, I would use the B Corp resources and different things on their website to start creating those policies now so that you have them. Like on B Corp's website, they have like an employee handbook template, and there's different things that you can do now before you have employees that will just help kind of give you a step up. But I do see your point of doing it, you know, going through everything and answering it in a certain way. And then in 3 years, you know, you have a team of 15. That's going to be different. On the other hand, if you're smaller and you have the time, in some ways it's going to be easier to do it now. And it's going to be cheaper if your revenue is lower. So it's just kind of, again, figuring out what works for your timeline and interests. But does that help?
Yeah, definitely. It's, I mean, you gotta think about this, just make sure that it is in the planning, in the strategies you are working on. And once again, this is an asset at the end. To have this is not only with employees, as you were mentioning at the beginning, but also consumers are looking at companies that are B Corp, and brands are, if that you want to deal with. I mean, they are looking to companies that are B Corp. So, but it's an investment at the end. I mean, you got to think about that too. Thank you for the
You're welcome.
conversation.
Any other questions or, you know, people that want to talk about why they're interested in, or, you know, what the, if they, I mean, if you as a consumer look at B Corps, I know now I do, if I'm buying something, I look for B Corp, or it is just such a symbol of that from a consumer point of view. So.
Yeah. So for me, this is the same. I'm also a sole owner of my company, and I just started. And so I'm actually learning about the B Corp sort of ecosystem, like being one and working with B Corp certified companies in terms of, you know, helping them to do consumer research, helping them to create new products and services. So I show up today because I want to learn more about this ecosystem. And so I know that they even have their own job board, right?
Yes, B-Work.
Yeah, B-Work. It didn't work really well for me. Like I went to the website, it didn't show me, like I couldn't filter it for some reason. But anyway, so yeah, I'm here because I'm interested in working with B Corp companies and become a B Corp certified company.
That's awesome. Very similar to us. I will say with the sort of B Lab community and B Corps, a lot of cities have it's called B Local. So if you Google like B Local New York, B Local Toronto, B Local fill in your city, there are groups and organizations that are B Corps and people that work at B Corps. And they're very friendly, they're very open. So if you're curious about B Corp or just kind of getting in, you know, like you said, that ecosystem, those B Local organizations are a great way to do that. And there's different kind of LinkedIn groups or that kind of stuff. But I mean, it's definitely a huge, quickly growing movement that I think a lot of people want to be part of, whether as a supplier, as a consumer, as a company, which is kind of cool that they're, you know, you can support B Corps by buying from B Corps. Like that's just as, you know, that's valuable too. So it's great to hear that people are thinking about it. And yeah. So any other questions or anything anybody wants to bring up?
I do have a question. Is there anything that is similar to your knowledge to B Corp initiative in terms of trying to validate some of the climate actions of businesses? Or do you really think right now the main standards for that are really B Corp standards?
From a supply chain perspective, I think there are different supply chain certifications. I can't think of any off the top of my head.
Mm-hmm.
If I do, I'll send them to you. But I think that B Corp, again, it depends if what the kind of end goal is, and if you're creating a transparent supply chain and that's the goal, I think it's helpful for that. I think from a supply perspective, it's kind of the first level. It doesn't weigh supply chain as much as other things do. So, I mean, I think it is worth it. And just because if you're only focusing on supply chain, I think you're missing out on other benefits that might come from, employee engagement or different environmental things. So it really depends on what the end result is. But I think that for what it is, B Corp is helpful for supply chain. Have you done any other supply chain research, or what have you found?
Well, there is other, I would say, if you look at, there is a lot of certifications going on now. So like, Higgs Index or a lot of things around the supply chain are extremely metrics oriented.
Right.
And I feel that the B Corp has its more general sense of, what it really means to be trying to be sustainable, that it's just not one thing, that it's a way of thinking, and it's always very difficult to measure that, right? But at least the intent in there, and I think that's why it's so strong. So I was kind of trying to see if there were anything that maybe could be added or is missing right now in terms of how we measure things toward climate goals in many different industries, not just supply chain. And I had another question for you. Do you think it should be done by type of industries, this type of process, or actually it's better if all type of businesses, or not just supply chains, but all type of businesses are actually following a chart, a commitment chart, rather than trying to have people match something specifically for their own industry, or both? What's your opinion? I'm kind of asking your...
Well, so the first thing I also think is important to keep in mind with kind of the metrics and the difference between B Corps and other is B Corps are really directed at privately owned companies. And so because public companies obviously are set with investors, they are much more incentivized based on their industry or based on different things to be putting out sustainability reports and those different things and kind of prove what they're doing, both for investors and supply chain and just from size of company. I like that it's industry agnostic and that it kind of covers that any company can become a B Corp. But I think to improve on, like you said, making sure that, companies are meeting climate goals and setting climate standards, I think there needs to be industries kind of pushing within the industry to be pushing each other to improve. But I mean, when you look at like reporting like SASB and GRI and CDP and all of those different climate reporting tools, now they're making a push to combine those into kind of one general reporting scheme. So I am still, and I think this is just because this is the size of companies that I work with. They're usually smaller, newer, medium companies. If they are thinking about this and they're doing anything, I am thrilled. Like I am more focused on making sure that kind of companies from the beginning are thinking about these things, and smaller companies, and that sustainability isn't just focused on, Fortune 1000 and public companies, making sure these smaller companies. But I agree with you. I think that, for companies that are well established, so looking at, like Apple and Google and Microsoft, like what they're doing, and Google saying that they're going to be net zero and putting all of that out, I think that that is valuable, and that they need to be meeting within their industry and talking about it to push each other. Does that make sense? That's kind of a long-winded.
Absolutely. I think it's very, very interesting questions. Answer, sorry. Another question would be, what happens once you're registered with B Corp in terms of checking that you're actually matching the criteria, or better said, that you're actually following up with your promise?
So when you are to become certified, you have to say, these are the policies that we have in place, and these are the policies that we're using. And these are steps that we're already taking. Therefore, we certify to the standard. So if you are in with B Corp and you're saying, for example, supply chain code of conduct. Oh yeah, we're thinking about supply chain and we're going to put a code of conduct in place next year. You're not going to get any points for that because it's not already in place. So once to become certified, you have to show that you have these policies. These are things that you're enacting. Therefore, the assumption is that 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks after B Corp certified, it's not like you're like, okay, we're done. Now we're certified. We are proving that we're already living out these promises, and we're just continuing to live them out. So to keep that standard, you have to recertify with B Corp every 3 years, and keep, show the same things. Again, as the assessment develops, some of that, you might have to prove new things, or you'll say, now we've purchased more renewable energy, or we've shifted into these supply chain habits. So it's meant to kind of grow with you, and you have to recertify, but because you've already proven so much, the assumption is that you're just going to keep doing that. And it behooves the company that is doing that to keep it up, because, it's a lot of work that you've done. You put all these things in place, and you're kind of you're already doing that. So I think, especially for B Corps, it's really just a seal. For the majority of companies, it's a seal of what you're already doing. So companies, I think, that are, adding different policies and doing different things, the assumption is that you will continue those policies.
How do they check? Does someone come physically?
So they do, the audits are random. They'll audit certain companies. And I think if you're over a certain size or have a certain number of locations, they do come and check. But you send in your assessment, and B Lab checks it on their end, and then you meet with a representative from B Lab, and the meeting with them is usually 90 minutes to 2 hours. And you're going through each question, and you're saying, yes, we do survey employees. Here's a sample of the survey that we sent. Here's the answers. Like they're going through and they're checking the documentation of each of those things. And if you don't have it, you don't get the points for it. So that's another way that they check you.
And is B Lab only doing certification, Eliza, or they do other things as well?
I mean, they do certification. They run once you're a B Corp, you're in what's called the Beehive, and that's sort of their like internal platform that lists B Corps. And then again, you know, you can talk to other B Corps in your industry and talk about what you're doing or in your area. That platform isn't very robust. They just sort of offer it. They don't, and then you kind of use it as your will. They don't really monitor it. And then the other thing, they do a lot of work on checking, making sure their standards are up to date, making sure they're looking at the same thing. This year, they have done a lot of work on obviously giving companies resources to get them through COVID, doing a lot of those. They're doing kind of more sessions for B Corps and sharing information for how to do that. They've also done a lot of work on like anti-racism training. That's become a big push for B Lab, and offering those resources to B Corps, making sure they're talking about that and doing those types of things. And then there's a lot of business development. You know, I mean, as a consultant that works with B Corps and helps them get certified, they have resources for us, and we, you know, meet with them, and they want feedback from different people. So that they are both the certification body, but they're also doing a lot of research and kind of things behind the scene to make sure they're always kind of pushing to the next level. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions, or has anyone started the assessment? Damien, have you looked at it?
I did. I took a look at it, and I'm very early, to tell you the truth, because, and once again, once I see that it is going to be adding value, I will do it, because I think it's very important. I'm in the middle of this. Actually, what I do is we know that the way that commerce is running right now with the immediacy, you know, is very expensive.
Right.
Immediacy meaning you go to the store, you buy something, you have the inventory there. That's not sustainable. So in the future, the way that I see and our company sees that is that you go to a showroom, you order your TV set, and 45 days later you're gonna get your TV set, because we cannot have inventory. So and by using that money, those resources, we're helping shoppers to save money, brands to make more money, but more importantly, we're making donations to save the Amazon rainforest.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. So that's kind of what we do. So it's a lot of impact there and things, but what you were mentioning, the policies and all the things that I have to write, definitely I need to wait a little bit longer.
Yeah,
that's great. Well, I'm glad you're thinking about it. And like you said, I love the idea of thinking of it as an asset. It is an asset.
It is, yeah. It is. It is. Yeah. Recruiting brands, for instance, with the idea is going to help a lot if you are a B Corp.
Yeah.
And of course, shoppers, you were mentioning, people are looking for companies that are making difference right now.
Yeah.
And if I have to pay a little bit of more for something, actually they're doing it, even though we are in this crisis right now. So yeah, very important, B Corp.
Yeah, me too. It's the same value proposition for me. I only want to do business with B Corp companies. Like, and at some point when I was looking for a job, I only looked for B Corp companies too.
Yeah, I think the job, I think some companies either aren't aware or aren't thinking about the sort of recruitment benefits. Like they're like, okay, we know customers and suppliers and, you know, we can be this, but I mean, I'm at networking events and different things, and everybody, I want to work at a B Corp. I want to work at a B Corp. I want to work at a B Corp. Like, it's just the way that people are thinking now. So being able to share that benefit with potential companies, I think it's really powerful. And I also hope that pushes more companies to doing it, whether new employees or existing employees too. I think they're in a space of, I want to be making a difference at work and I want to be doing this. So B Corp is a good way to do that. Yeah. So awesome. Well, I'm sorry that the links didn't work in the chat, but I'll be emailing that list of resources. Connect with us on LinkedIn. We, if you are a company that does B Corp, we do longer and short-term sessions to help with that. If that's of interest to you, please let me know. If you have any questions, in a couple weeks or a couple months.
A couple of months with me.
Yeah.
Good luck, Damien.
Thank you.
You got it.
Same thing for you.
Thank you.
Okay, guys.
Thanks so much, Eliza.
Thank you. Great to meet you guys. Happy holidays.
Okay. Happy holidays.
Bye-bye. Happy holidays for you too. Bye.